What if I told you that someone has been living your life better than you? Going to your job, talking to your friends, sleeping in your bed, and everyone thinks they are you. What if everything you think makes you unique, someone else is doing it perfectly, and no one has noticed the switch? Think about the last time you felt like you weren't quite yourself. That day when your coworkers looked at you strangely, when your best friend seemed distant, when even your reflection in the mirror felt wrong. What if that wasn't just a bad day? What if someone else was already replacing you? If you're brave enough to discover what happens when you meet the person who's been living your life, hit that like button now. Because what I'm about to tell you will make you question whether you're really who you think you are, or just the backup copy. Stay until the end, because I'm going to show you how to tell if you're being replaced, and what to do when you come face to face with a better version of yourself. This story begins with Michael Torres, a 29-year-old graphic designer who thought he was having the worst week of his life. Michael worked at a small creative agency in Austin, Texas. Nothing extraordinary about his life. Decent job, small apartment, a few close friends, the usual routine of modern existence. But last Monday, something changed. Michael woke up feeling off. Not sick, not tired, just wrong. At work, his colleagues treated him differently. Sarah from accounting, who always chatted with him about weekend plans, barely acknowledged him. His boss mentioned a presentation Michael supposedly gave last Friday, except Michael had been home sick that day. His computer showed projects he didn't remember working on. Michael brushed it off as workplace confusion. Maybe he'd been more productive than he remembered. Maybe people were just busy. But then his best friend Jake called him that evening with a weird question. "Dude, why didn't you show up to your own birthday party yesterday?" Michael's birthday wasn't until next month. He told Jake this, but Jake insisted they'd celebrated yesterday at Michael's favorite restaurant. He even had photos on his phone, pictures of Michael laughing, eating cake, giving a speech about turning 29. Except it wasn't Michael. It looked exactly like him, but Michael had been home all day. Here's where it gets terrifying. Everyone in Michael's life had memories of events he'd never experienced. His sister remembered a long phone conversation they'd had about their parents' anniversary. A conversation Michael never made. His co-workers remembered jokes he'd never told, ideas he'd never shared. Michael started keeping a detailed journal, documenting every interaction, every moment of his day. What he discovered made his blood freeze. There were gaps, hours when people claimed to have seen him, talked to him, worked with him, but he had no memory of any of it. If you're feeling that creeping paranoia right now, that what if this is happening to me feeling, smash that subscribe button, because Michael's discovery was just the beginning. Michael decided to investigate. He started showing up to places where he supposedly had been but couldn't remember. The coffee shop where the barista greeted him by name and asked about his usual Tuesday morning meetings. The gym where his trainer asked why he'd missed his regular Thursday session. The grocery store where the cashier mentioned how much she'd enjoyed their conversation about local politics last weekend. Michael had never had any of these conversations. He didn't have Tuesday meetings. He'd never been to that gym. He avoided political discussions with strangers. Someone else was living pieces of his life, and doing it so convincingly that no one suspected anything was wrong. That's when Michael installed security cameras in his apartment. Hidden cameras that would record everything while he slept. What he saw on the footage the next morning destroyed his understanding of reality. There, on the recording, was Michael. But not Michael. Another version of himself. The other Michael moved through his apartment with perfect familiarity. Made coffee using the same mug. Checked the same emails. Even had the same unconscious habits. The way he scratched his left shoulder when thinking. The specific way he arranged his keys on the counter. It was identical in every way except one. This version of Michael seemed happier, more confident, more successful. He moved with a certainty that Michael himself had never felt. When the other Michael left for work, he walked with purpose. When the real Michael left, he shuffled with uncertainty. Michael followed himself that day, watched as his doppelganger gave a brilliant presentation at work, had animated conversations with colleagues, charmed everyone he met. This other Michael was everything Michael wished he could be: funnier, smarter, more charismatic. And everyone preferred him. Michael could see it in their faces. His co-workers lit up when the other Michael approached. His friends seemed more engaged in conversations. Even strangers responded more warmly. The replacement wasn't just taking over Michael's life, he was improving it. That night, Michael confronted his duplicate. He waited in his apartment, cameras rolling, for the other version to return. At 11:47 p.m., his front door opened, and Michael came face to face with himself. "You're not supposed to be awake for this," the other Michael said calmly. "Who are you?" Michael demanded. His duplicate smiled, a confident smile Michael had never been able to make. "I'm you. The version of you that everyone wishes you were. The version that doesn't waste potential, doesn't hesitate, doesn't disappoint people." "But I'm me," Michael protested. "Are you?" the duplicate asked. "When's the last time anyone was excited to see you? When did you last make someone laugh genuinely? When did you last feel proud of something you accomplished?" Michael couldn't answer. He couldn't remember the last time any of those things had happened. The duplicate explained the truth. Michael wasn't being replaced by an imposter. He was being replaced by the person he could have been. Every moment of hesitation, every opportunity he'd missed, every time he'd chosen comfort over growth, had created space for this alternate version to emerge. "I'm not stealing your life," the duplicate said. "I'm living it properly. Your friends are happier, your family is prouder, your co-workers respect you. Even you would prefer to be me." And Michael realized with crushing certainty that this was true. The duplicate offered Michael a choice: fade away quietly while everyone continued to love the improved version, or try to reclaim a life that no one really wanted him to have. "Think about it," the duplicate said. "Who would miss the real you? And who wouldn't prefer the me I've become?" Michael spent 3 days considering this offer. 3 days watching his duplicate excel at his job, strengthen his friendships, and create the life Michael had always dreamed of having but never worked toward. 3 days realizing that his replacement wasn't evil, he was just better. On the 4th day, Michael made his choice, but not the one you'd expect. Instead of fighting his duplicate or fading away, Michael decided to become worthy of his own life. He started small, speaking up in meetings, calling friends first instead of waiting for them to call, taking risks he'd always avoided. Something strange happened. As Michael became more like the person he wanted to be, his duplicate began to fade. The better version of himself wasn't an invader. It was a projection of his unrealized potential. As Michael claimed that potential for himself, there was no room for the substitute. But here's the twist that changes everything. Michael's duplicate had one final revelation. "You think I'm disappearing because you're becoming me," the duplicate said as he grew translucent. "But what if you're wrong? What if you're the substitute, and I'm helping you remember how to be real?" Michael realized he couldn't remember anything from before last Monday. His entire sense of identity, his memories of being unsuccessful and hesitant, might themselves be false. What if the confident version was the real Michael, and the anxious version was the substitute trying to reclaim a life that was never his? The truth is, Michael never figured out which version was real, but it stopped mattering. Whether he was the original becoming better or the substitute learning to be authentic, he was finally living the life he wanted. Sometimes the most terrifying question isn't "who am I?" but "who could I be?" Here's what I want you to think about. Are you living up to your potential, or are you creating space for a better version of yourself to take over? Have you had days when people treated you strangely, when you felt disconnected from your own life, when you wondered if you were really yourself? Michael's story ended with him becoming the person everyone preferred. But what if your story is different? What if somewhere out there, a better version of you is already living your life, and you're just the backup waiting to be replaced? If this story made you question your own authenticity, hit that like button and subscribe for more reality-bending horror. But I'm warning you, pay attention to how people treat you this week. Notice if anyone mentions conversations you don't remember having, or events you never attended. Because the scariest thing about being replaced isn't losing your life. It's discovering that everyone prefers the substitute. Sweet dreams. And try not to think about whether you're really you or just the version no one wants to keep.